Good afternoon and welcome back to our English language and linguistics course. The topic of today's lecture will be the rank scale. That's the constituent structure of grammar, how we should look at grammar from the point of view of structure in order to make sense of its meaning functionally. Now, first of all, let's give a definition of rank or rank scale. I'll explain that immediately. So, the rank is the layered part-whole relationship that occurs among the units of grammar. So, here what you should know is that there is a part-whole relationship between the different constituents of language. So, what does this mean, in other words? It means that when we analyze language structurally, that is from the point of view of how it's shaped, we look at larger units in terms of the smaller units that compose them. For example, I've already explained in the previous lectures that we in functional grammar prefer to talk about clauses rather than sentences. But for the sake of making an example, let's think of the old terminology of grammar, which talked about sentences. Okay, if you take sentences, you will find that you can divide those into smaller chunks, words, morphemes, even letters, and for example, if you're not writing but speaking, sounds. Okay, so the concept here is that each time you have a larger unit, you can split it, okay, into lower level units. That's the basic notion of the rank scale, which I'll explain in more detail during the course of this presentation. Now, let's make another example. If you take a unit, a very basic unit, like I, yeah, the personal pronoun, okay, that's one word, but it's also one morpheme and possibly also one clause. For example, if I ask, who took my glasses? And you reply, I. Okay, you, of course, there's an ellipsis of I did, okay, but I can stand alone as a clause as well. Okay, so these are extreme cases, of course, in which just one word plays the role also of a clause and also of, okay, it's just one morpheme. But it's an extreme case that I think will illustrate what I mean very clearly. Now, let's look at this inverted, well, should be a pyramid, but of course this is only two-dimensional, so it looks like an inverted triangle. Now, at the top of the hierarchy, we have text. As you probably remember from the previous lecture, text is the most important unit of meaning in functional grammar. That's what we look at in order to explore the whole notion of meaning as function and context. Okay, below the text, if we decide to split that larger unit into smaller ones, we would find a clause, right? I'm sure you agree that all texts, well, include at least one clause, but typically involve more than one clause. Okay, so more than one clause, several clauses can give you a text. If we take the clause and we decide to find the smaller units that the clause is composed of, what will we have? Groups. Yes, you may have said words, but okay, what do words do? They get together into what are known, also in traditional grammar, you may have heard of this before, as nominal groups, verbal groups, adverbial groups, because they tend to stay together. For example, if we take a word which is a noun, let's say a noun for example, and its adjective, that would be a noun group. And also if we take this group formed by an adjective and a noun and we put an article at the front, That's also a nominal group. For example, a beautiful car. That's a nominal group. An interesting lecture. That's a nominal group. We'll see this in the next lecture. Now you should know that text is composed of clauses. Clauses is composed of groups, and groups in turn are composed of words. Yeah? Okay, so it's not wrong to say that a clause is composed of words. But there is an in-between layer in the rank scale. That's the groups. And what about words? What are words composed of? We've already seen this word. Morphemes. Yeah. These are the constituent parts of words, which we shall look at in a few minutes. Okay, so what can we say about this inverted triangle or pyramid I've just shown you? Okay, text, as I said, is the most important unit of meaning and systemic functional grammar. And it's the key semantic unit of analysis. Okay, it can be of any length. It can be, as I said, just one clause, or it can last for a very long stretch of different clauses. Okay, and these clauses are made of groups, okay, which can be nominal groups, adverbial groups, verbal groups, all sorts of. And you can look at words in two different ways. You can have words that are known as lexical words because they have a meaning of their own. And you can have grammatical words, which are also known, not by chance, as function words. They're words that have no meaning of their own, but serve, shall we say, as the glue that keeps together the lexical words. For example, in the nominal group I've just made up for you as an example, a beautiful car. Beautiful and car would be lexical words. The article, would be a grammatical word, because if you have it, you see it alone, you look at it alone, it doesn't carry any meaning of its own. Its meaning is grammatical, and it serves to keep together the group. We'll see this anyway. Finally, words are made up of morphemes, and morphemes are defined as the minimum distinctive unit of grammar having meaning. Okay, of course, in some cases, I mean, they don't make sense on their own. They need to be together with something else in order to make sense, but they are the lowest layer in the rank scale. Okay, right. So you will have noticed that the term we're looking at today, rank scale, includes the word scale, which is quite similar in Italian to the word you have scala, right, the staircase. But I would encourage you to look at that scala more like a ladder than a staircase. Okay, you certainly know the difference between a staircase and a ladder, okay? If you don't, look it up in the dictionary. What you see shown here on this slide is a ladder. And you see that the top level, or layer more correctly, is the text. Then you have sentences and clauses. As I said, it's not quite the same thing. In functional grammar, we prefer the word clause, whereas traditional grammar would likely favor sentences. The main difference is that whereas a sentence is a theoretical object, so a sentence also includes made up, invented, stretches of language that are used as examples. Clauses are really real objects of observation, so more empirical. And then you have, what are phrases? Phrases are what we describe as syntagms. Okay. For example, the best known use of phrase in grammar is prepositional phrase. Right? There are groups, usually noun groups, that are preceded by or anyway introduced by a preposition. Okay. For example, Yeah, exactly. For example, is a prepositional phrase. Yeah, or in my opinion. Yeah, it's a prepositional phrase because it's a stretch in language that's introduced. It's a group, yeah, that's introduced by a preposition. So yeah, I would rather use the word group here, group. In fact, that's what we will use. But you should know that phrases and groups yeah, are the same grammatical object looked at in different ways. Okay? And then words, and then what you have below words that isn't shown here on this slide is morphemes. Now let's look at the sides of these ladder. We have on the right hand side functional grammar with an arrow that points to the bottom of the ladder. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that functional grammar, unlike traditional grammar that you have here, looks at the structure of grammar from the top down. Yeah, from the top down. That is, from larger, more general units to smaller, more particular, more granular units. Now, if you go to the left-hand side of this letter, you'll find that there's a traditional grammar with an arrow that points up. Okay, this means that traditional grammar, unlike functional grammar, typically works from the bottom up. That is, it usually starts from the lowest levels and sees how they assemble to create larger units. So it works in exactly the opposite direction that functional grammar does. Right. So, levels of grammars, as I said, I would prefer you to use the word layer because it's more accurate terminologically. But there's nothing wrong if you use levels anyways, as long as you understand what the rank scale is all about, what's it for, how it's shaped, and so on. Okay, you should also be able to distinguish between the approach that traditional grammar has from the bottom up and the approach that functional grammar has from the top down. Okay, good. So let's have another example. Now, sentence. Recent research is shedding new light on how acupuncture might work, though we still have no definite answers. Now, this is called a sentence here. In functional grammar, we would call this a clause complex because it's, as you see below, the result of the combination between two clauses. One is the main clause or independent clause. Recent research is shedding new light on how acupuncture might work. And the other one is a dependent clause, what we would call in traditional terms, yeah, this would be a subordinate clause, okay? It's a hypotactic clause in functional grammar, and it's dependent on the main clause, the independent one here. Okay, we'll see how clauses combine later on, but for the time being, you should understand that these are two clauses, not one. Okay, there are two, and they combine into a clause complex, which the slide shown here, which I took from a book, calls a sentence because it adopts the terminology of traditional grammar. Okay. Now, let's see what we can find below the structure, the clause, below the rank scale level that we call clause. So we find groups. Okay. Here, there are only some groups shown. Recent research is shedding new light, no definite answers. What else can we put in there? Okay, think about it. Acupuncture, yeah, that's a nominal group. Even if it includes just one noun, it's a nominal group, all right. Might work is a verbal group, yeah, including both. It's a verb here, lexical verb, and it's modal, auxiliary. or modal operator, as we prefer to call it in functional grammar. Then what else? We, yeah, this would be a noun group. Yeah, we'll see this in the next lecture, why this is so, but still have is a noun group, a verbal group too. Okay, so these are only some examples, perhaps the most evident you have. Okay, and then words. Okay, also here we just have two, but we could take each and every word that's shown here, and all of them would qualify as words in the rank scale. And then we have morphemes. Okay, these are only two examples. Answer, z, shed, in. Okay, you see here the second Z shown in brackets because, okay, you certainly know that this is orthographic. It's just a matter of spelling convention. The base form of the verb is shed with just one D. That's why the other D is shown in brackets. These are two morphemes, okay? This is only an additional letter that's inserted into the some forms of to shed for as a matter of spelling conventions. Now, okay, you see for answer, z, these are two morphemes, one of which gives you a lexical information, answer, and another one gives you grammatical information, z. Okay, we'll see that here we see very clearly a distinction between lexical and grammatical morphemes, but this is not the only distinction you should be aware of. Okay. Now, let's take an example. Stop. How can we analyze this in terms of the rank scale? It's one sentence, it's one clause, it's one group, just a verbal group, it's one word, it's one morpheme. So this is really an extreme case like the one I showed you before with I as a personal pronoun, which could play the role of word, morpheme, clause at the same time. Right, let's talk about text now. What is text? You may remember from the previous lecture, I described text as any stretch of spoken or written language which is complete, which has cohesion and coherence, and serves a given function. Now, functional grammar, as you certainly remember, does not only look at the structure of text. In fact, its main preoccupation is not with the structure, it is on the function, that is on how and why texts mean what they mean. So the how refers to the general communicative principles underlying the language or the text, okay? And the why is concerned with the social situation. You should remember from last time that I told you about language as social semiotic, okay? So, and context, you remember, to context of situation, context of culture, and the different ways in which you should approach these two concepts in order to make sense of language functionally. Right, so in order to compose texts, to make texts that have a meaning, we need to have at least one clause, but usually more clauses. Let's see an example of a clause. To be or not to be? I'm pretty sure you know how to go on. That is the question, okay? Okay, the thing you see above, to be or not to be, are actually two dependent clauses, okay? There are two verbal groups united by this conjunction, coordinating conjunction, or. Okay, there are two dependent clauses, okay? And so the are clauses, despite the fact that the verb is non-finite, okay? It is an infinitive, okay? To infinitive, but despite that, they're clauses. What makes them differ from this is that this clause can stand alone. So what we can say about this is that the second one is independent, and the first one, I mean, actually two, are dependent. They cannot stand alone. Okay? So if we take them all together, they will form a clause complex, not a sentence. Yeah? I mean, some traditional grammarians will call that a sentence, but in functional grammar we call this a clause complex consisting of three clauses, two of which are dependent and one is independent. Okay? So, okay, the text is the most important unit of analysis in order to understand the notion of meaning, the notion of function and context, but we need the clauses to make up a text. So the clauses are crucial to the kind of structural analysis that functional grammar makes. So that is one way in which, as you probably remember from last time, it's not as if functional grammar doesn't care for the structure. It approaches it in a different way from traditional grammar, and the whole purpose of this kind of structural analysis is to bring to light the functions. Okay. So, to sum up, you should look at a clause as an important, a crucial unit of meaning that provides information on what's happening, who is taking part, and the surrounding circumstances. We'll find all this very soon when we talk about transitivity. Okay? So that's a crucial way in which we look at a clause in functional grammar. It's not the only way, yeah? But it's one very important way. Okay. Now let's see some example of words. Tall, a book, serendipity, this, cross-check. These are all words. You see, one is an adjective, one is an article. There are two nouns. There's a demonstrative. There's a noun that's composed of two nouns united by a dash. Okay. Now these are not all of them are content words, if you remember, but they have a content and they have a function. Okay. Okay. How can you understand if a word is a content word or a function word? Okay. You've already seen this. Can this stand alone? I mean, does this have a meaning of its own if we don't unite it with something else? No. And the same happens to this. It just tells you that it is a non-specific. In this case, is non-specific and this is specific. It doesn't tell you much, right? Now perhaps, I don't know, I'm not sure you know this word, so it might not tell you much either because it's not a very widely used word, but if you look it up in the dictionary, you'll find it means finding something by chance, being lucky in finding something by chance. Actually, it's a very interesting word also from the historic point of view because it comes from the ancient name of the island of Sri Lanka, yeah, the old Ceylon, which was called Serendip. So the colonizers there, the British colonizers, called it called serendipity. I mean, finding something by chance after the name that Sri Lanka had at the time. So it's very nice, you know, that's a lexical word with a history. Right. So let's focus on the difference between lexical words and grammatical words. As I told you before, lexical words are also known as content words because they carry meaning on their own, yeah. And grammatical words are known as function or, well, sometimes empty words because they need other words to make sense. Now, why have I frowned upon saying empty words? Because, okay, as I said, they don't have a meaning of their own, but it's not as if there is nothing in there, okay? As I showed you here, and this, they are grammatical words, they're function words, but it's not as if they don't mean anything, okay? As I said, they only mean, in this case, non-specific, in this case, specific, but you know, calling them empty, I don't like much. You can call them that, okay, because it's used, but I would prefer you to use grammatical words or function words. Okay, so let's see some examples of morphemes now. Okay, good. This is how the word childishness, which derives from child, okay, is shaped from the point of view of morphemes. Thus, child, it's, okay, a lexical morpheme, which we can also call the free morpheme, as we shall see in a few minutes. And then there's ish, and this actually would already be a word, childish, okay? This ish is a morpheme that modifies the part of speech of the word that it's attached to. Anneth, this also modifies the part of speech of the word. Okay, so these two are grammatical morphemes, and this is a lexical morpheme. Now, as I said, child could also be called a free morpheme. Okay? A free morpheme is a morpheme that can stand alone as a word, child, for example. Okay, this of course doesn't mean that free morphemes can only be lexical. Now, try to think of an example of a word, of a morpheme, a one-word morpheme, let's say, that it is a morpheme that includes just one word and is not a lexical word. Try to think of that. There are several examples, actually. We've already seen one. Yeah? Actually, we've seen two. This is also a grammatical word that includes just one morpheme and can stand alone, so it's a free morpheme. But then you also have and, but, then. I've used several. Those are free morphemes that are grammatical. So despite the fact that in our original example here we have a free morpheme that's lexical, you shouldn't think that free morphemes can only be lexical. Okay? These are examples. As you see, there are three lexical words: cat, house, book, and three grammatical words: and, but, she. Now, you will have noticed that the above, that's cat, house, book, and, but, she, are all one-syllable words. The problem is that in some cases, I mean, morphemes and syllables are not the same thing. Okay? So what happens here is that you have system, crocodile, salamander. These are all multiple syllable words, but they include just one morpheme. Okay? So morpheme and syllable are not the same thing. There are morphemes that include more than one syllable. Now, we're not studying the division into syllables in English, but you should know that in compare, it's not the same as in Italian. Yeah, I'm sure you were aware of this, but this is not part of this year's program. But you should know that in English, you don't look at the graphic letters in order to count morphemes. Sorry, syllables. Sorry, beg your pardon. You don't count the letters. You count the sounds. So, for example, let's take the word syllable here. How many syllables do you see there? Syllable. Yeah, you have 2. It's not 3, because this you don't count because you don't pronounce it. Okay, but this is not part of this year's program. I'm just telling you so that you know a little bit more about this language. Okay, now, as I said, some morphemes are free because they can stand alone as words. And in the first slide I showed you about this, we have child. Some other morphemes are not free because they cannot stand alone as words. Those are known as bound morphemes. So, for example, in the previous example we saw childishness. Child is a free morpheme. Ish and ness are bound morphemes. Okay? So, as I said, ish and ness, you remember, in childishness, gave us information about the part of speech. So they were derivational bound morphemes, morphemes that affect the word class. Tell us if the word is an adjective, an adverb, or a noun. And sometimes also the meaning, like do, undo, read, misunderstand, miss, or also dis. You know, these prefixes are also morphemes, and they are inflectional. So bound morphemes can be divided into inflectional. For example, we've seen in this presentation, we've seen the word answers. Answers. That one is an inflectional morpheme if it means plural, yeah, and it can also mean if answer is a verb, it can be the third person singular. Okay, those are inflectional morphemes. They don't give you information on the word class, they give you information on the plural or the tense. Okay, right. The person as well. Okay. Oh, sorry, I forgot to show you this. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you'd already thought of this. For derivational, as I said, there are some derivational morphemes that do not affect, or do not only affect the meaning, but I mean they affect the word class. Okay, beautiful, for example, you have beauty. Full makes an adjective. Recently becomes an adverb. Information, yeah, and you have Asian as well. In A makes part of the morpheme that makes inform a noun. Now, okay, but this brings us to a key question. If you take information, right, who tells you that the morpheme, the bound derivational morpheme, is Asian rather than shun? Where do we draw the line between morphemes? And most importantly, is this so crucial to our understanding of the structure of words? Well, actually, Halliday and Mathieson, the authors of the most recent version of Introduction to Functional Grammar, don't think this is the case. They think that an understanding of morphemes is very important in order to make sense of the rank scale, but we should not let the theory stop us from concentrating on what's really important. That's communication, function, meaning. So I think this slide is very explicative of the kind of attitude that functional grammar has to structure. Structure is very important, but it's never an end in itself. It's always a means to an end. Okay? So Halliday and Mathieson tell us words have constituents of their own, morphemes, and they're not marked off in the writing system. You see, there are no dashes in the writing system that show you where exactly a morpheme ends and another one starts. Sometimes they can be identified as the parts of a written word, for example, eat and frighten or frightened, or else recognizes traces of its history. Beside, away were both originally dimorphemic. Yeah, in fact, indeed, if you look at beside and away, and also because on a dictionary, you'll find that they're one morpheme. In contemporary English, they're one morpheme. But in a historic dictionary, a dictionary that reconstructs the etymology of English words, you'll find that originally these were two morphemes. Beside, to mean on the side of something. Away, that's separated, away, in a different way. Because, in the sense of that's the cause. In their original meaning, there were two morphemes. So what do we do now? Well, the position that Halliday and Mathieson have is that we should not let these structural problems obscure the analysis of meaning. So they conclude, grammarians used to worry a lot about whether to analyze sat, came, etc. as consisting of two morphemes. But this is a problem created by the theory. Composition is an important semogenic resource, but it should not be allowed to dominate our thinking about grammar. So, okay, we should be aware of structure. It's very important to know how language is, the compositional sides of language, but, wasting our time wondering why strong forms of verbs are shaped as they are wouldn't be useful from a functional perspective. Okay, so this is the end of today's presentation, and I recommend you study this and also do the exercises that you find in your book, Functional Grammar and Introduction for the EFL student, and then you can go on to study the next lecture, which will be about groups.